What do you think of when I say scrappy first draft? You probably think of a paper you had to write in high school, or perhaps a book you've started. Today, I get to speak with a USA Today bestselling author who published her first book on the eve of turning 50. She has a book for authors on mindset with the title Scrappy First Draft. In today's conversation, though, we managed to apply this way of thinking to even more things. Welcome to The Grit Show, Growth on Purpose. We're glad you found us. I'm Shauna Rodriguez, and I'm honored to be joining you on today's journey as part of this community, growing together as seekers and thrivers. Donna Barker has spent the majority of her 30-year career as a self-employed communications expert, supporting progressive not-for-profit organizations in Canada. She's also worked as a small business mentor on contract with Canada's largest credit union, coaching dozens of aspiring entrepreneurs, helping them write business plans and cash flow projections to attain small business loans. She also has an alter ego, Danika Bloom. That's where the USA Today bestselling romance author comes in. Today, she blends her communications and business background with her passion for working with romance authors. And that is what we talk about more today. Author Ever After is Danika's online community that helps other romance authors turn their writing hobby into an income-generating business, creating happily ever afters. We mostly call her Donna in today's conversation, but sometimes just for fun, we'll add in that Danika Bloom. Welcome to the show, Donna. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Shauna. It's funny. One of the very first emails that I send to readers who sign up for my author list has got the subject line. I use their first name, and it says, "If that's really your name." And I explain how I use a pen name as a romance author and why I use a pen name as a romance author. And I cannot tell you how many people write back and say, "Actually, it's not my real name." And then they'll tell me their stories about why they use fake names. It's fun. It's so fun.
That is really fun. I think that's great. I think that sometimes people are confused about why writers use pen names. Do you want to help people understand why do writers use pen names?
There are lots of reasons. Some do it because, for instance, I work with one romance author who works in advertising, and she has clients, and she doesn't want her clients to know who she is because it's not a good fit for the type of work that she does in her career. For me, so nobody knows. Like, we as romance authors don't know what her real name is, and her clients don't know what her romance name is. So she's really, really careful about keeping the two distinct. Yeah. Myself, I'm Donna, I'm Danika. I have books published under both. And that is a really good reason why authors have more than one name, more than one pen name, or their real name and a pen name. Because when you're marketing books, so if I have a nonfiction book as Donna called Scrappy Rough Draft, and if people are looking at that and then seeing a bunch of steamy romance, it's going to mess up the algorithms. It's a marketing thing, right? So as Donna, I write nonfiction, and that is the world that I worked in as a consultant to nonprofit organizations. But as a steamy romance author, I am Danika, and it's a strategy that just helps keep the two businesses clean. But when I'm talking to people, they know that I'm both. But machines can't know that I'm both. It's like, the machines have to be kept in the dark.
Yeah, machines get easily confused. And that's something, so I don't think I've ever talked about this on my podcast, but so I do have a book, Beyond the Pear Blossoms, which is it's women's fiction. And that is written with my name, Shauna Rodriguez. And then I do have a series that is written with my pen name. And my pen name is Avery Lawrence. And the Lawrence is my fiance's last name is Lawrence. And when we get married, I'm going to keep my name because I've worked darn hard for it and have a lot under it. But my pen name is his last name. So it's so cute because he's taken the book to work and talks at work all the time about my pen name. And my stuff is small town, sweet romance, very sweet stuff with a cute dog that he loves named Boots. But so he'll talk about that. And it's so cute that he talks about it so much at work. And again, it's very much like you said, like the brand difference, because women's fiction does not have the sweet, happy endings that small town sweet romance does. And so again, we don't want people getting confused when they're looking for one or the other and the computers and the algorithms. And so that's the reason why there's two different names on it. But it's so cute how much he
I
gravitates
love
towards the one
that.
that has his last name
I love that.
on it.
My husband
Yes.
has not read anything that I've written.
Really?
Not a word. No, he has no interest in reading my books.
That's so cute. So my fiance, he read Beyond the Pear Blossoms, which is women's fiction. So it's very much about the emotional journey. It's very a little heavier, a little emotional, whatever else.
Yeah.
And that's not his thing. Like he loves to read, but that's not his thing. But he read it because he loves me and he did that for me. But the other one, I didn't expect him to like at all. And he actually loves it. And he's like, well, it's kind of like romantic comedy. It's very sweet. It's very cute. And so he actually likes that one, which surprised me. I didn't expect that at all.
You know what? I'm not surprised only because I have had this experience in my real life, in my Donna community, like literally a small town in British Columbia, a little village of like 200 people. I know almost everybody, and they're really supportive and friendly people. And a number of them have bought and read at least my first romance because it takes place in a town that is very much like my village. And the number of times they've said, I don't read romance. And then they get to the end and they'll say, wow, I'm really surprised. That was just a really good story. And it happened to have this romance in it, right? Like romance is just a good story that has love as kind of the core driver. And isn't that what life is too, you know? So when people say, you know, oh, I don't read romance, I think, well, it's just because you haven't read romance yet. If you gave it a chance, you'd probably find that it's not dissimilar to other stories that you read. So
yes. Yeah. Well, my story opens like with a fire happening and action and all that type of stuff too. So, you know what I mean? So it's got a little action in there too. So maybe and there's like a little town like event, a little town fair and stuff. So who knows? Maybe that's part of it, that it has a little bit of those things.
I love that.
But yes. Yeah. But that's the reason why I tell people that it's kind of like there's Ann Taylor and there's Loft, and they're both the same. They just have a different name. So you can tell the difference when you go shopping with the thing you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, yeah, that's not where I expected us to start, but that's like an important little tidbit for us to get on the side. So a large part of our conversation today, I hope just to kind of touch on, you've had some exciting transitions through your life at different ages and stages. And I would love to kind of start with like your original transition of your first novel and you publishing it on the eve of turning 50 and kind of where you were at that stage in life.
Oh yeah. It almost literally was the eve. It was 2 weeks before I turned 50. I published my first, which I had started writing the year I turned 40. So it took 10 years. And the story behind that was my dad so I wrote this novel. And it ultimately never became a novel because it was my first book, and first books are often they're learning, right? It's you know, we don't need to share those in the world. But over the course of the decade, I took that story and I massaged it and I worked it and I came up with another story. There's an expression called writing from the scar, not the wound. And that first draft was written right after my husband of 15 years decided that he was in love with a different woman. So I wrote this it was called Drinking Scotch with Strangers. And it was very much writing from the bloody wound of having been left. And so over time in my healing, I was able to take that experience and rewrite it as a humorous book, women's fiction, paranormal, called Mother Teresa's Advice for Jilted Lovers, in which every man dies. But it's funny because I'm writing from the scar instead of the oozy gooey wound.
You could find the humor then.
Exactly. I could find the humor in it. But I started working on that one because my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he had this desire to write a book that he had never fulfilled. And since I had written one and I was a writer, like a technical writer for my whole career, I said, all right, why don't we write our books together? So he and I became accountability buddies. And every week we would share chapters. We would send them back and forth. He was reading my paranormal women's fiction and just like questioning how he could have had a child who had such murderous intent towards men, right? So, and then I was reading this story that he wrote, which was kind of a Clive Cussler, James Patterson thriller. And I'm like, okay, like Prime Minister of Canada, you better be careful because I think my dad's coming for you, right? Anyway, it was so much fun. And we finished our drafts almost at the same time. I had written about 60,000 words. He had written almost 100,000 words. And then he got too sick to carry on writing, and we both put our books aside, and time passed and I stopped. Like I had this goal of being a published author, and I realized I wanted to be a published author by the time I was 50. And I picked it up again and thought, like, Dad would not be impressed that I just let this sit here. And I'm almost 50. And for goodness sake, I've been doing this for like 10 years. So I was afraid. I really was afraid that people would read the book, not like the book, and by extension, not like me. Right? Like there was definitely that fear of being judged and so on. So anyway, ultimately, I just had to swallow it. And it was, there's a freedom that comes, I have to tell you, there's a freedom that for me has come with every 10-year decade, right? Like turning 30, I had my son, and suddenly like, I felt like an adult at 30. In my 20s, I didn't feel like an adult. I was still a kid. I was a kid pretending, right? I was a married kid pretending. And then 40 was another transition where turning 40 and being a single mom all of a sudden, as of turning 40, it was another transition age where I grew into a new version of myself. And in terms of my career, I guess I started to feel more confidence. And then 50 was kind of like, all right, who cares if people like me or not? I am who I am. I'm not changing at this point. I'm just going to be me now. And it was hugely freeing. I tell you, like, I don't know why people get afraid to turn 50. For my experience, it was like, it was the best decade change of my life so far. I'm not sure 60 is going to be so great, because I'm looking at the wrinkles now and going, oh, can we go back to 50? I was really liking that.
Now you're going to be thrilled with it too. It's just going to be like 50. Before you get there, you're a little nervous. Once you hit it, you're going to be like, oh no, this is awesome.
And
we're going with
exactly. That. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be, but I think you're right. It's going to be awesome. I just don't know what it's going to be yet.
Yes, which is mindset, which you have a book about mindset.
I do.
Tell us about your book about mindset, Donna.
So Scrappy Rough Draft, and I'm going to read, because I can never remember the long ass subtitle on it. It's Use Science to Strategically Motivate Yourself and Finish Writing Your Book. So this was something when I was working on the book, Mother Teresa's Advice for Jilted Lovers. I joined a writer's community at that, like, I don't know, probably 4 years before it actually published. So when I was in my mid 40s, and it was a romance writers group. Even though this story wasn't romance, they were the only writing group in town. And so they really supported me in having courage and also learning the craft. And one of the things that, one of the books that everybody says you should read is a book by Anne Lamott. And in that book, she talks about, I hope it's okay to swear, your shitty first draft. So that is, and authors talk about writing their shitty first draft. And I was like, I did a program. I did a course for aspiring writers back before I wrote this book, after I had published my book and before writing this one. And in that course, I was referring to Anne Lamott and saying, like, don't get stressed about your first draft. It's not meant to be good. And I called it a shitty first draft. And I got raked over the coals, as it were, by an English second language writer who took it literally. And she said she was going to quit the program, right? She was like so upset. And it got me thinking, and we had conversations, and I was like, no, it's a metaphor. It's a saying that we use in English. She said, but it's terrible. It makes me feel like I should just flush this away. It makes me feel like I am a bad writer. And I started thinking about it. I thought, it kind of makes me feel like a bad writer too, to refer to my own writing that way. Yeah. So I started doing a lot of research, because in another life, if I had more money to go to school and do master's degrees, I would have done another degree in psychology. But so I do that on my own, my own personal psychology degree. And I figured, I figured out all of the science, the neuroscience, the social science around mindset. And we're writers. Words are so important to us, right? Like, we take so much time to write the right word in our stories. Why were we using this language? Well, because Anne Lamott said it, but I think it was misguided. my personal opinion,
Yeah.
which, you know.
No,
So
I completely agree with you. Scrappy first draft is a much better way to say it. And I like it because scrappy is a term that it means you're trying and
well,
you've got the oomph behind it and you're going to get there.
yeah, well, it's so funny. So yes, for me, Scrappy is like, and when I think of Scrappy rough draft for me is like Scrappy Doo, the little in Scooby Doo, the little tiny, the puppy who you back him into a corner and he comes out fighting. Like that's the image I see. And one of the exercises, the very first exercise in my book is find the right name for your book. Stop calling it a shitty first draft. Call it, if you're writing a story about kids, like if it's kids book and it's about a witch, a child witch or something, call it, you know, a magical first draft. Like find the right name for it so that when you're thinking of it and when you're referring to it, like, oh yeah, I'm working on my draft with, when you're referring to it with other writers, you're using a word that actually brings you joy and makes you feel happy about it. So
I love that.
that was that. And yeah, it's been translated to Korean. Like I cannot tell you how exciting that is, that, you know, there might be K-drama written that my book influenced. I'm like, so yeah, really exciting to have that.
That is so exciting. And you kind of found a niche with mindset and writers, because that is an area where writers need a lot of support. So tell me, you have this new great project around this. Tell me about your new project around mindset and supporting writers.
Well, yeah. So it's called Author Ever After, and it's a community that's specifically for romance authors. And so for 5 years now, I've been running masterminds for authors. Every week we meet, and it's all around accountability and motivation and setting goals that bring you joy and celebrating all of the small wins, because writing a book takes so much time. And, you know, statistically speaking, people's first books take typically between 5 and 10 years from the time they start writing. And if you're sitting on your own, you don't realize that. I cannot tell you how many writers will say, oh, I've been working on this so long, and they lose confidence and they lose momentum and they think that it's taking too long. But that is just the reality of those first books often. So, but romance authors, so I've been doing this with genre authors and memoir writers and hundreds of authors who have gone from draft to many of them are now published, which is really exciting. But it's the romance authors who bring me the most joy. So I don't know. I just love working. There's a, I don't know what it is. It's just there's nothing earnest, I guess, at least the community that I attract. There's this playfulness with romance authors and this desire to experiment that just brings me a whole lot of pleasure. So I have decided, you know, after working with all the different authors, that where I really, really want to niche down and focus is supporting specifically romance authors and getting their first books out and turning those books into money, because almost every romance author I know is like, I want to make money doing this. It's a sad thing. I want to quit my job because I love doing this so much, but I need to make money at it. So it's finding that those people that I can truly support, because I can't support a memoir writer. I'm not the person to support a memoir writer to become an income earning memoir writer. There are lots of people but I can support a romance author to become an income earning romance author because I understand how the romance industry works. So, yeah.
No, that's the important thing of knowing what your place is and what you've learned and sharing that knowledge. You found a definite path for that.
Yeah. And it's tiny. I mean, it's tiny niche, right? It's a very specific niche, but it's, anyway, yes, it is. I can stop talking now.
You're supposed to be talking. That's why you're here. And you also have this exciting new thing with like text messages and voice messages you can send to your community. Tell us about that.
It's called Spark Your Romance. And it's this coolest new technology where you sign up for this program. It's a challenge, a 21-day challenge. And every day I will, with my dulcet tones, give you a challenge to address your mindset and give you confidence and courage and cheer you on so you fall in love with the story that you're working on, and follow it up with a text message to say, hey, did you do the homework? And then you'll text me back and say, you know, the special word, and I'll say, yay, good for you. And, you know, you got this. And maybe give you another little piece of homework. So every day for 21 days. And then at the end of it, the intention is that you've reconnected with your story and you love it. And you just, you get your momentum and want to stick with writing those characters that have been speaking to you or stop talking to you. No.
That is so wonderful. That accountability and just not feeling alone in that journey, I think is really valuable, I'm sure.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And you and I got to chat a little bit about like this concept of Scrappy First Draft and how it kind of applies to our own lives and figuring out like where our purpose is and how purpose can evolve and like finding, like growing into where you want to be. Can you talk a little bit about your iterations of, I mean, you've been a USA Today bestselling romance author of spicy romantic comedies under Danika Bloom, and then you're finding your way into doing this amazing work with other authors. Can you talk a little bit about your path of how you kind of changed in different iterations and used all your skills from all your different work to come together?
Yeah. It's funny. And now it is finally coming together. So I started off doing a degree in communications thinking I was going to be a documentary filmmaker because social justice is kind of my thing. And it's where my heart is, but I could never find and I've made documentary films and they've been in festivals. And as a career, it was a tough career to do as a mom and hard to make money. But the social justice piece was there kind of holding that up. So I worked in progressive nonprofits doing communications and community building. And I did that for over 20 years. And in the last, actually over 30 years now, in the last 15 years or so, I started working with a credit union, and credit unions, I don't know if it's the same down in the States, but up here in Canada, Canada's largest credit union is huge in social justice movements. And so nice. I was taking my skills and working with entrepreneurs with disabilities to help them launch businesses and writing their business plans and doing their cash flow. So the credit union would say, this person has a really great idea, but we can't give them a loan because their business plan and their cash flow aren't adequate. So can you work with them for 10 to 15 hours and help them get that figured out? So I did that for a number of years and I love it. I love all the work, all the clients that I've worked with, but none of them were my thing, right? Like it's one thing to support those people and those causes, but they weren't the ones that made me wake up in the morning and go, this is my cause. This is the thing I want to see succeed.
That you resonate
exactly
with.
Yes. Yeah. So my purpose. So my purpose is to be absolutely to be helpful and to community build, but with whom? And it wasn't until I fell into the crowd of romance authors that I realized, oh my gosh, I've finally found my people. So in terms of, like that growth, it was perhaps circuitous, but it definitely brought me to the place where I am now with the confidence in myself and the skills and the experience to be as helpful as I can to authors who want to be earning income, because I've got the business background. I've been self-employed for over 20 years. I have got a career as a romance author. So it all came together. It's looking at it on paper, you'd think, how do those things work together? Helping entrepreneurs with disabilities and then writing steamy romance. They do. They just do. That's all I can say. So yes, it's kind of my life as a scrappy rough draft. And I love that now you've put this bug in my ear that what's 60 going to bring? I'm thinking, I wonder what's 60. So maybe I'm still scrappy rough draft. Maybe we always are scrappy rough until the day we are not.
Constantly adding different layers. Well, and I think that's an important piece that as people are in stages of their life and they're like, this isn't quite where I want to be. Like, this isn't the future isn't where I want to be. Like, as I look out 10 years, this isn't where I want to be. That you don't have to like trash everything you already have. It's a first draft. Like, you can build on this. You can take what's best from this, take what you love from this, and keep going with
growth
it.
On purpose.
And I
take what's best.
Yes. It all comes together. And I think that that's an important piece we all have from this, that you can take, like, if you're a stay-at-home mom and it's coming to a point where your kids are flying the nest. Like, what did you love about being a stay-at-home mom? Did you love running around to all of the different events? Is that something you loved? Because some moms don't like that at all. Some love it. Like, did you love throwing the parties? Did you love getting to have quality time with your kids and these deep conversations about what they needed to do and wanted to do? Did you help teaching and guide them? Like, what did you love about it? So it's not that, you lost your purpose because your purpose is being a mom. No, your purpose is in the different things you loved about being a mom full-time. And how can you take those? How can you take, working with business plans for folks that had disabilities, and how can you take that and then skill stack it on something else you love, which is writing steamy comedic romances, and build that together to find like your next iteration and get you closer to that. So I think that there's beautiful things to be taken from this, and that everyone can kind of learn and look at their life, and as they're looking at transitions, about how they can take the best, take what was in that last draft and take it with them to even prove it even more.
I love this concept of stacking. That's really, I've not heard that before. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody, another guest we had, like, he was talking about how he did different things. I'm like, that's exactly what this is, taking all these skills and just like, and magically we can find the ways they bring it together. So I think that's going to end up being part of our takeaway for our guests, for our audience today. It's like, how can we stack all of our skills, pay attention to all of our strengths, because we got some in there. That's wonderful. That's so exciting. Well, good. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm
delighted. Been a very exciting conversation. I know, it's good stuff.
It's thank you. I've been listening to your podcast since it launched, and it's one of those, I don't know. It's not, I can't say a dream, but when I approached you and thought, hey, can I maybe talk to you about some stuff? And you said yes. It was like, this is next level. I'm kind of losing my words right now. I'm sorry, but it's like, this is purpose with a purpose, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense, right? Like, everybody needs some sort of validation. I guess that's what it is. It's validation that I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. You may have like a dual identity thing going on, but you're not crazy.
You really have a dual identity thing going on. Yes.
Yes, exactly. But you're not diagnosable with that. No. It's intentional. No. We want you to have the dual identity. They're both very positive parts of you. We love it. We love it. That's wonderful. Well, let's talk about self-care, because we love talking about self-care here. What do you do to take care of yourself, Donna?
I have to say, so I'm at that lovely stage of life where my hormones are deciding that they're going to try new tricks. And it was really great, which means I don't sleep really well anymore. I fall asleep without any problem. So in terms of self-care, I think for me, the most important thing that I have started doing in the last 3 years is there's no clock in our bedroom anymore, because I wake up in the middle of the night, and my self-care is to use that time without judgment and without stress, and to be my creative, not like, when you just wake up, you don't have that voice that tells you all your shoulds, and the voice that tries to shut down the common sense voice, right? So my self-care really is taking that time in the middle of the night that I will inevitably wake up and spend whatever it is, an hour, sometimes more, and play the what if game with my creativity. Ooh. So 2 or 3 in the morning is, I don't turn on the light. I cannot stand light in the middle of the dark. I keep my eyes closed. Yes. But last night I had a conversation with you, Shauna. How was it? It was better than this one. I was so clever. I was amusing. You laughed so hard. Anyway,
I am laughing hard. That part was true.
So that is my self-care. It's not judging what my body is just naturally doing, and it's accepting it and allowing it to do its thing through this next stage. And hopefully by the time I'm 60, it'll have learned how to sleep again properly through the night. But until then, it's using those hours that other people are sleeping, and being creative in my mind, and it bubbles up the next day, right?
Yes. No, that's wonderful. I love like that lack of judgment, and just knowing this is going to happen, and I'm going to make use of it the best way that I know how. And I love that you don't turn on the lights, because that'll keep you up the rest of the day.
Well, horrible. And my husband, he's got the same thing going on with insomnia, but he gets up and he watches movies, and I'm like, I don't even know how you can do that. Like, how? Anyway, we're very different that way. So,
very different that way. Well, good. Well, we have Dr. Robin Miller is one of our episodes, and I'm thinking she's coming out sometime in mid-October. So I'm not sure where timing will be with your episode, but you should listen to her episode because we actually talk about hormones. It's one of the things we talk about on that episode.
Fantastic.
So you should definitely, she has a book that's coming out that I think you'll enjoy. So you should definitely check out that episode because we might give you some more tips and tricks and pointers around all of those things. Yes, she's great. That's wonderful. So great. I like your self-care. I think part of it is just being gentle with yourself and knowing where you're at and working with
accepting.
it.
That's right. Accepting that is where I am now in this stage, in this season, as it were, Shauna.
This season, yes, because we have so many seasons. Yes, we do. Wonderful. And you might be aware of this, but I give all of my guests a coloring book.
I want mermaid. I want mermaid. I want mermaid.
She knows. She wants the mermaid. She gets the mermaid. She gets the vintage mermaid and magnificent ocean. Yes. So you will get the color grit, vintage mermaid and magnificent ocean. And for my Canadian friends, I've had a couple of Canadian friends on this show. It's kind of fun.
We are fun.
Yeah, I think you guys... I think you might be most represented outside of the States because I've only had one from Australia and one from the UK so far. So I think that you guys are represented in Canada. And every time you guys come on, I hear something about a social program with credit unions or the fact there's no interest on student loans. And I'm just like, you guys, I might have to move. I wish the weather was a little less cold. But
yeah.
You got some cool stuff going on up in Canada.
Cool stuff going on. Yeah. So
yeah, you do. Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, good. We'll definitely get that to you. But what I do is I send you a downloadable version of it. So
that means I can make mistakes. I can color outside of the lines, and I can do it again. I like that.
Exactly. Bonus. Yeah. Nice bonus. I like that. Wonderful. And so for all of our friends that are listening, what do you think that our takeaway should be for all of them? What should be their thing that they walk away and add to their life tomorrow? Should we have them work on your self-care technique of looking at their life and not judging whatever they're doing with it? Or should we give them something around possibly the skills that they have and looking at the skills and how they can add it to their next draft? What do we think?
Because I'm married to a man who spent an entire career doing a job he did not love. And now after retirement has taken on, he did 6 months with no work. And then he got a job working part-time, doing the thing that he always wished he was doing. Aww. I think, which is woodworking. He went from a government bureaucrat working in litigation to being a woodworker. And so I think the takeaway should be, look at the things you love. And at that next opportunity in your life, when you can do a transition, be ready to transition into that thing that you love. Because it truly, my husband is 60. It's not too late to become a construction worker, apparently, because there he is. I tell you, the guy is sore when he gets home from work, but he loves it. He loves it. So, thinking of these milestones again, mine happened to be on the decade. Many people do have, their decade crises. I prefer to think of those decades not as a crisis moment, but as an opportunity to make a conscious change to something that is what, we're now ready to take on. So that would be where I would ask them to focus.
I love it. So start really thinking about those things that your skills and your wants and the things that you want to do that light you up, your passions, your purpose, all these things together. Yeah. You can find that and to start looking around for those clues, those little tidbits of what you love about the things. Because there's lots of things we don't love about our lives, but there's lots of things we do love. And so to find those things that you do love and try to think of those. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you can start percolating about the different ways that they kind of go together.
How can I bring those in? Yeah.
Yes, find that way. I love it. So, okay, everyone, that's your plan from today is to go start thinking about those things and how you can integrate them into your next transition.
Sounds great.
Those transitions happen. You just never know when they're going to be and what they're going to be. But if you're looking for them.
And if you're ready for them. If you're ready for them.
Ready for them. Get ready for them. You start opening those doors. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, good. Well, let's tell folks. So that wonderful text messaging program that you have that you mentioned, you even have a discount code for the folks that are listening because you're amazing. So tell us about how to get hooked up with that and then tell us how to find you in general.
Okay. So I guess there'll be a link in the show notes for...
There will be, yes.
So it'll be an author ever after. And then when you use the code GRIT, you will get 15% off and you'll get to have this conversation with me for 21 days.
Yay!
And
I love it.
And then the other places you can find me on Amazon, just as Danika Bloom, Danika with a K. And that's where, if you're interested in reading spicy romance, I was thinking, I was recently having to rewrite my bio, and what occurred to me was, see, I only have one child. I always wanted to be, the mom in the Partridge Family or the Brady Bunch and have all kinds of kids. That was always my dream when I was a teenager, but body just said, nope, you're going to have one. And so I rewrote my bio and just was like, as a mom of one who always wanted to be, not Jan Brady, but the mom Brady, I write streamy romance about bands of brothers. And then I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy, isn't it? Like mom writing about all of her sexy sons. But I kept it because I thought that's kind of funny. Anyway.
Yes, we're going to go with funny. It's amusing.
It's also kind of creepy. But anyway, that's rom-com. It works.
That's rom-com.
So yes. Amazon.com is probably the best place to find. And there's, of course, DanikaBloom.com. But
that's nice and easy. Yes. You like big families. So you like big families.
Love found families. That's what my one son did, is he created his found family. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. Well, good. Well, yes, that's how to find her. And if you do, I want to hear about your experience with this wonderful new technology of getting to get text messages and voice messages. If somebody checks that out, send me a DM too, because I want to hear about it.
Yay.
Because that sounds like
it's
fun.
a lot of fun.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
This was a ton of fun. Thank you.
Yes, you're delightful. This has been great. So for everyone out there, be sure to stop by thegritshow.com. That's where you can get your copy of coloring pages that you can download so you can work on your self-care, because we know that's important. And as you know, you are the only one of you that's out there, and that really does mean something. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care.